What follows is a prose poem made out of my notes of The Return of the King. 7 stones, comma, magic cell phones, question mark?
Yes.
Gandalf is sweet to Pippin, TBH. Peace, shut the fuck up, ho. It's weird he hasn't taken over the throne. Gandalf is an angel, right? He's cunty no matter what. Putting his arm around Pippin, that's kind of gay. I like Pippin's boyfriend. Pippin's big day out. Even the narration kind of infantilizes the hobbits. The West has such different connotation now. This MFer love horses. Such craft, such emotion. Black Riders get you with bad vibes? Sauron, kind of a diva. Aragorn is watching you jacket? Wait, is this a communism thing? The end.
Is it indeed?
Clapping. Yes. Honestly, we'll try, but I don't even know if we need to do an episode at this point.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I really summed it up.
We'll do our best.
Listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.
Welcome to the Socialist Shelf, where we are finishing our Tolkien series. Started with The Hobbit, following that with Fellowship, Two Towers, and now Return of the King. And we have a returning guest, 3-time returning guest. Aysha, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to come back for Tolkien, a guy that I like and respect. When last time I was here for cunt serving Lewis, who I do not like or respect.
We're very, very happy to have you back. And rest assured, when you come back on for a 4th time, we'll have somebody who you do not respect even more than Lewis.
Yeah, I guess the first time I came on, we talked about Salinger, who I don't really know if I respect him. I also don't think he'd care one way or the other.
Definitely not. I don't think Tolkien would care if you respected him. Lewis would care a lot if you respected him.
Lewis would cry if he heard all the things that I've said about him.
And he does. That's his. Here's someone. God damn it. Oh, it's so easy. It's so easy. We did it with our JD Vance episode as well. Just Just Dance Vance, Jelly Donut Vance. It's too easy. JD Vance, C.S. Lewis collab win. But anyway.
God, he would want that so much.
They both would.
Is JD Vance Catholic or is he
he's
evangelical?
He's very recently Catholic.
He's an adult Catholic convert.
Yeah,
That's
really
so
wild reactionary flavor of adult Catholic convert. Reactionary even for those people.
It takes a deep kind of pervert to become a Catholic as an adult.
And JD Vance even said, and he didn't marry into it or anything, just I guess because of the internet. But JD Vance even said oh, well, I'm very influenced by Tolkien and what it's just he's very frustrating. We did a sort of a bonus episode on the Guardian article about Tolkien Politico, and Vance or Politico article. Just a nightmare of an article, but there's all those connections. I mean, Peter Thiel, this guy's sort of patron, literally named his company Palantir that does surveillance. So it kind of all connects.
Yeah, I think that JD Vance and James Dobson are the two people I can think of who converted to Catholicism as adults. And
oh shoot, James Dobson Vance.
Yeah.
It all fits.
Or no, maybe not James Dobson. The other one, Paul McCusker.
Paul McCusker. Yeah, James Dobson. I was gonna say, I don't know what. I think he's maybe Baptist. I don't know. Have to.
I'm so sorry, James Dobson. I'm so sorry I called you a Catholic. Even you don't deserve that.
Well, I'll tell you someone who would not be ashamed to be called a Catholic. It is J.R.R. Tolkien. And we are back to talk about him. If you are interested in the bio of Tolkien, we spend like half the Hobbit episode talking about his little adventures in like World War One and like throwing sugar cubes at people with his wife and all. Just weird guy. Listen to that. But we won't rehash it. But yeah, Return of the King. Before we really get into this, Aisha, what's your background with Lord of the Rings? What's your background with Tolkien? I mean, we know you like fantasy and all that, but what's the, your specific relationship with this really seminal piece of work here?
So my dad is a huge Tolkien fan.
I think every dad is a huge Tolkien fan.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who's read The Lord of the Rings like 20 times. Like, he read it to me when I was maybe 8 or 9. So I didn't understand a lot of it.
Sure.
But because of that, I grew up with this very deep reverence for The Lord of the Rings to the point that, like, I know in the last episode, you guys talked about how there's people who are like, fuck the movies. And I'm not a hater, but I have a lot of issues with the movies. I think that they really don't capture the spirits of the book. I think that my opinion on that has changed a little bit as I've now read the book after becoming radicalized, kind of. That I was like, I don't know, maybe I think the movies maybe improved on some things from the book, at least in like some ways, but still, I think that we can get into it when we talk about the battles and stuff. But I also like weirdly, I discovered when I got online that there's like a huge fanfic, like fan art community about the Lord of the Rings, and there's a ton of like slash fanfic, which like obviously it's like the gayest thing in the world. But I was a little bit like, I almost like it kind of made me clutch my pearls a little bit because
it's
in
like
my
Lord
head,
of the Rings,
it's like so like not sexual that
sure.
like. Not that I'm like, oh, you're sullying it with like fucking. Like I definitely am not one of those people.
It's a very unhorny book though. Like there are moments where it's like this person is beautiful and there's like romance, but like Eowyn and Faramir meeting each other or like whatever, it's not horny at all.
The most romantic stuff is between the men.
Yes.
And I mean, that's true in like the movies too. Like I get why like people saw the movies and were like, okay, well, Sam and Frodo are in love, obviously. Like,
and then at the end, like Sam, gets married and then they both move in with his boyfriend.
Yeah. That's pretty woke of Sam, actually.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but now like I've definitely like, I don't know, it's sort of a thing that you're just like, this to me, I guess also because I read it with my dad. It is like, it's like, yeah, my dad is like, I mean, my dad also like read me Tintin comics when I was young, and I've had like actual arguments with my dad about how Tintin is gay. Like him and Captain Haddock are gay. I'm sorry. Like, and my dad is like, well, no, it's just like men back then just lived with each other sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, because they were gay.
Famously as well, like Cassandra Clare, of the City of Bones, like that whole thing.
Oh, I know her well.
Yep, yeah. Listeners, like she got her start doing like Legolas and Gimli stuff.
Yeah, and Draco in leather pants, right?
Was that her?
Yeah, I think it was.
Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, we have heard a thing for that.
One of these days we'll have to do a Harry Potter. We did Harry Potter. We did fucking what was it?
My Immortal.
No, maybe that's. But one of these days.
You know what we should do? I say we. You should have me on to do this. You should do the Cursed Child, because that shit is bonkers.
It is. I read it the first day it came out. The first day it was available, and then I was like, am I gonna be the only one in the world who doesn't like this? And it turns out not the case. I would love to see it staged still, but anyway.
I kind of love it just because it sucks so bad and like has some ideas in it.
I like that Harry's abusive. That's cool.
Yeah, I like that Harry's
or emotionally abusive.
I like that it gave us one of the greatest lines of all of literature, which is "You're ruining Voldemort Day." I say that all the time. It's part of my lexicon.
Ruining Voldemort Day.
Well, there's the episode title right there for when we do it. Ruining Voldemort
You're ruining
Day.
Voldemort Day.
Exactly right.
We are ruining Sauron Day today.
No doubt. Or I mean, because they, as you might remember, in the last book, they ruined Saruman's day, and he's kind of just useless guy now. I'm sure he'll never show up again.
He's also a diva.
Oh yeah, peak. peak diva, and like literally his power is just like speaking to people. And Saruman is absolutely, yeah, he does come back around with the name Sharky, but we'll get to that for some fucking reason.
That's
But
his drag name.
as it should be.
It's
But
like the orc for like old jackass.
yes. Uh, but the book starts with Pippin and Gandalf, as was sort of summarized at the top here, going to Minas Tirith. And Minas Tirith is the capital of Gondor, which is basically, you know, the biggest country in the world. It's the big, quote unquote, Western country. It's where most of the humans live. And it's the
an
place that
empire, isn't it? It has vassal states.
essentially it's an empire. Rohan is like more or less a vassal state, even though like their kind of relationship is like they don't really talk as much anymore. It has like power over all these areas. And it is where Aragorn is supposed to rule if he ever really wants to get around to it. And now Gandalf is going there to warn them, yo, the armies of Mordor are coming. I am here to help you, and I have brought myself and a hobbit, so you should be solid. Which is what Gandalf mostly does, is he shows like obviously Wormtongue is supposed to be a bad guy in the last book for pointing out that like Gandalf only shows up with bad news and is not particularly helpful. But like that is true 99 times out of 100. Like Gandalf's there, that means you're about to die, or at least someone you love.
Kind of shows up and he's like, hey, you have to kind of change everything that you were doing before because God told me that you do, I guess, sort of.
And he's right, is the infuriating part.
It's the curse of being right first, yes.
But the problem is he's been here before and he didn't tell him to do anything differently then. He waits till now. But
right, and we meet Denethor, who sucks, kind of. But
everybody's
like,
favorite guy.
Yeah. I kind of like, and to my note, why hasn't this guy taken over the throne? It's weird to me that like they're like, oh, the real king's not here. And I'm like, okay, well, you know how you become the real king? You're just like, I'm king and I'm stronger than you, which I guess he tries to do, but I feel like he could have done this before because that's how you become a king. You kind of just make yourself the king and then nobody can stop you. I guess it wouldn't really fit into Tolkien's whole like only the true king can be king because he's got the king juice in his veins, I guess.
Yeah, I'll describe what happens when they walk into this throne room. It says, because it's Pippin, really Pippin's perspective, because as we said, one of the best tricks of Tolkien is showing things from the perspective of hobbits because they don't know anything and you, the listener, doesn't know anything. And then it kind of tricks you into being told stuff, though sometimes he just tells you stuff. But still, it does a whole description. I won't read all of it, but then it says, Pippin was reminded of the hewn rocks of Argonath and awe fell on him as he looked down that avenue of kings long dead. And at the far end, upon a dais of many steps, was set a high throne under a canopy of marble shaped like a crowned helm. Behind it was carved upon the wall and set with gems an image of a tree and flower. But the throne was empty, and at the foot of the dais, upon the lowest step, which was broad and deep, there was a stone chair, black and unadorned. And on it sat an old man gazing at his lap. In his hand was a white rod with a golden knob. He did not look up. Solemnly they paced the long floor towards him until they stood 3 paces from his footstool. Hail, Lord and Steward of Minas Tirith, Denethor, son of Ecthelion. I am come with counsel and tidings in this dark hour. Then the old man looked up. Pippin saw his carven face with its proud bones and skin like ivory, and the long curved nose between the dark deep eyes, and he was reminded not so much of Boromir as of Aragorn. Dark indeed is the hour, said the old man, and at such times you will want to come, Mithrandir.
I like
so
your
I
Denethor voice.
I think he's kind of, I think that's how he sounds.
Yeah.
You know, he looks grand, but kind of has that voice. I think that works for him.
Yeah.
But this is what he is. He's a guy who looks like he should be the king. Like
exactly. Like his
not.
line is Aisha, as you were alluding to, you know, he's got the steward juice in him, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like his father and on back, when they're stopped being a king, that's just what they're for.
Right. And that is also a line that you inherit, which is interesting.
Right.
It's not an appointed thing.
It's so weird that like none of the stewards have tried to claim the throne. I wonder if there's some magic that stops them from doing it. Because like, I don't know, I also have been reading A Song of Ice and Fire because I'd never read
Sure.
it before.
Oh, hell
I
yeah.
I watched like a season of the show and I liked the first season of the show and then I started not liking it after that.
Sure.
But I love the House of the Dragon. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I wish there was more of this. And I was like, wait, I could just read the books. And I
Yes,
do
as you
like the
should.
books a
They're good.
lot. But there is like a legitimate claim to the throne, but there's also like six kings who are all like, I'm the legitimate claim to the throne because I'm gay or whatever.
No,
Like
literally, Renly is my favorite king. We'll do an
RIP
episode
to a
on
real one.
exactly. I'm so annoying about it, but I'm like, his claim was like, well, nobody likes my brother, so I'm gonna do it.
He's
I
right.
And I think
love
that's so cool.
I love how like IRL, like there's still like Aurelianists and Bourbonists who have very strong opinions about who should actually be on like the throne of Spain or wherever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I
Like,
expressed in the last episode or the episode before last with Brian that I think there hasn't been a real king of England in 500 years. So
Yeah, I mean that like, I think that there are some guys who would agree with you.
hmm probably so. But yeah, you're right. It is strange Denethor hasn't risen. I think it is Tolkien's like respect for tradition, where he's like in his mind, Denethor is not full villain. Most people are full villain or full heroes in Tolkien. Denethor
Right.
is definitely leaning villain, but in a sort of like his brain has been corrupted by darkness and fear way, rather than like malicious. And if he had tried to claim the throne in Tolkien's worldview, he would be like the worst person in the entire world because he
Right.
would have like
mhm.
violated that sacred thing. Reminder that Tolkien's politics, he said he wished they could have an anarchic society with a king. Like that
Yeah.
that's how his brain worked, right?
Yeah.
Like so,
Well, I
you
mean
know.
it's like the thing that they teach you when you're like 15 in AP Euro.
Yeah.
They're like I remember I had this like teacher and he said the literally arguably the best form of government is a monarchy with a just king. I'm not sure that I agree with him, but I also see what he means. Like
Right.
if it is a perfect Tolkien world and you have a perfect just man on the throne like
Hmm.
Aragorn, everything will be fine, right? Until his like dipshit shithead son takes over and ruins everything, which is the problem with monarchy. Because you can have a great guy and then you have a shitty guy and there's no way to get rid of him.
Or you perhaps go to confront the warriors of Arnor, you disappear, and then a steward becomes in charge for a bajillion years. Like
Right.
as long as there were kings for, there have been stewards
And
of
even if you
Arnor.
are and even if you are a good king, like you can still have a like greasy jackass whispering poison in your ear.
Right.
Well, that's why you have to have Gandalf.
I also kind of have some sympathy for Denethor because I kind of had the same thought where he's like, and I'm just supposed to let some random dude who like has lived in the woods his whole life
Mhm.
be king? Does he know anything
Hmm.
about being king? Does he have a tax code? Like,
Literally, I think didn't Martin say that at one
yeah,
point, something
He
like that?
yeah.
did.
But he's right, you know,
And
it's interesting.
I don't really have patience for like when people are like, if you don't know the trade routes of your fantasy kingdom, then you can't write about it. Because
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
that's not the kind of book it is. It's like myth, it's fairy
Hmm.
tale. It's not really supposed to be about that. It's like who like how is there no underclass? It doesn't
Hmm.
matter. There just isn't. Or we don't talk about them. That's
Right.
fine. Like whatever. It's not that kind of story, but I feel like that if like the reason I think about it is because he hammers on how great these guys are
Hmm.
just for like being the bloodline that they are.
Hmm.
And I don't know, he seems like
Except
oh
Isildur specifically. Fuck
right,
that
that guy
guy.
sucked. But like right, but it's like okay, well, does blood matter or doesn't it?
Mm.
Like because if you can get corrupted, then why do we value blood so much? Like, why,
Hmm.
like, I don't know, maybe we should elect our king.
And the
Like,
thing is, it's not really a question he even tries to answer. You know,
right,
like it's not something that it's and I don't know what the guy himself would have said, but like in this case, it's just not. He himself said like as someone who served in the trenches, he said, yeah, almost no one is fit for command, and he's like
Hmm.
1 in a million are not fit for command, and I'm fascinated in finding that one man who is fit. Like
right.
that's interesting to him. And it happens to be Aragorn through like all of history coming together and divine, well, let's be honest, like divine purpose. That's a big part of it too. Like he is chosen by God. This is his whatever. He is King David, anointed to rule Israel,
Right.
or whatever. He's thinking very biblical
It's in,
terms.
it's interesting to me that the conflation of like leading troops and leading a country happens so easily, kind of without question. I think the only person who ever really questions it is Faramir.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, I disagree a little bit, only because question it, no, but Tolkien makes the point that it's actually better that Aragorn is a healer than a leader of
right,
men
right.
later
Yeah, the
on.
hands of a king or
So
the hands of a healer. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that he questions it, but he does like make the point that that's not all you have to do, because
Right.
there's a reason Boromir's not the guy, right?
That's
Like,
true. That's true. I will give you
um,
that.
but it is true that they don't like sit you down and say like, yeah, no, like if Aragorn wasn't good at being a soldier, it wouldn't have mattered how much of a healer he was,
That's
though. That
true.
is true.
That's true. There are parts of the Return of the King that I really like. I think a lot of it is kind of like elided. There's a lot of like, and then I described the things that I'm interested in, as in
Sure.
like the sort of like how everything looks and like the dynasties that were there.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of like, and then they walked lots of miles and they sang a song. And then
Mm-hmm.
everybody was happy. There's like kind of a lot of that, or like everyone despaired. But there are like a lot of individual little moments. Like I really like all the stuff with Pippin in the beginning when he's
Yeah,
like,
talk about that. Talk about that.
oh, I really like Pippin. I think he's my favorite Hobbit
Yeah.
because he's kind of a dipshit.
He
Like,
goes around fighting children.
yeah. I love how he rolls up to that kid and that kid's like, oh, you're just a kid like me. And Pippin's like, I could kill you. Like, I'm fucking your dad and I could kill you. I don't know, because that is that guy he like makes friends with.
Farragon,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, those
Yeah.
they're cute. I like that. I like how Pippin rolls up and he's like, "Wow, it sucks here. Like, do you have any food?" And everyone's like, "We've been under siege." Um,
Pippin's like, that wasn't my question. Where's the
yeah,
food?
yeah,
I like that he gets a little outfit. That's
yeah.
that's that's nice.
He
He
gets a
get
cute little outfit and he's like, "Now I'm like Denethor's best boy or whatever."
mm-hmm.
Little like squire.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Denethor like specifically cultivates like Pippin as because he wants all the information that Gandalf gives without the responsibility of like doing with it what Gandalf wants. But I mean, in Denethor's defense, like the one time anybody ever plays devil's advocate for Denethor, like he doesn't have the same relationship to all this that the Fellowship does, right? He's found the horn that's been broken that Boromir blew in his last moments, right? He's been subjected to. I mean, the point of remanding Denethor to the river Anduin was to remand him to legend.
Oh,
But
you
like
mean
imagine
Boromir?
or yeah, sorry, remanding Boromir, yeah, putting Boromir in the river after he died in Two Towers. And Denethor, like, imagine if you had to see a corpse after you buried it, right? Denethor doesn't get that ending for his son.
Right. I also think that to a certain extent, the things that Denethor is saying, he's not wrong a lot of the stuff he's saying. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
what, you sent the ring to Mordor? Are you stupid? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you sent the ring with these just like two people that to me like look like children, even though
Yes.
they're not. And I think
And he's
that
like, don't worry, I brought an example of one here. And then it's just like him scuffling with a 10-year-old child in the corner. And it's like, he's like,
yeah.
God damn it.
I think that all of the Denethor stuff in the movie is really well done. That's
Mhm.
one of my favorite parts of the movie. Like the
Mhm.
They
part
make him a
where
little less dignified, but like it works for what they're doing. I mean, like, God, that scene with the tomato, I know it gets quoted all the time, but it is actually like harrowing with
well,
the
the part
char.
where like
Oh yeah.
Billy Boyd sings that song
Right. It's
and it's
the charge and he's eating. Oh my God.
yeah. I thought that was a really, really good scene. I yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I love about the beginning. I like Pippin and Gandalf's relationship. I think
Mm-hmm.
that like I feel like that Pippin might be Gandalf's favorite too, because
Mm-hmm.
Pippin is like he's the one that like Gandalf's always like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna strangle this kid."
Yeah.
But like I think Gandalf's very sweet to him. Like he's very like he like doesn't I don't think he looks down on him the way that a lot of people seem to infantilize the hobbits because he's like big ups to the hobbits
Yeah.
all the
He's the
time.
guy who sees the potentiality in them.
Right.
Oh yeah, and ultimately, they're there. I mean, literally the first sentence of the book, Pippin looked out from the shelter of Gandalf's cloak. That's what they can return to.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Right. And Pippin's been like stricken by the bad vibes, I guess, which is just what the Shadow of Mordor seems to be, bad vibes.
Yes. I mean, yeah, it's talking about shivers and cold and this, that, and the other, and it is approaching. Minas Tirith, the great hammer, it says, of Mordor will fall on Minas Tirith. And yes, there are battles happening everywhere. It doesn't go into great detail. If you read some of the appendices, some of the letters, he says, "Oh, this is happening here, there, and the other." There's a video game, Battle for Middle Earth 2, that decides to like fictional. Obviously, it's all fictionalized, but like write their own little narrative of what was going on here, there, and the other. Galadriel apparently inverts the entire fortress. It says in one appendix, and it never like goes in further into that. It just says she like puts the bottom up. It's like, well, okay, what the fuck did she do there? Why isn't she at Minas Tirith? I don't
What is
know.
this Symphony of the Night?
Yeah, no,
She went to
sick.
Dol Guldur and made a pineapple upside down
No,
fortress.
yeah, no, that's literally like it's the fortress in Mirkwood. It says that like she like put the basement in the air or something like I presumably she just like inverted the thing
Sick.
like with magic, which like that's sick. Would have like been useful here against the main army, but whatever.
Right.
And,
Right.
But
and I do
Tolkien would have
like
been like, that's not their place, you know. It's not just about winning. Because I'm sorry, I cut you off, Lenore, but just to finish this thought,
yeah.
um, um, one thing Tolkien said in one of his letters, I've got it written down because this is useful because it's not just about winning the war to him, right? Because he's like, oh yeah, they could have taken the ring and won the war and so on. That's not the point. Um, but he said that if this was an allegory of one of the world wars, it was one of his many letters in which he was saying this wasn't an allegory because it's one of his favorite things to talk about. It said both sides would forge rings if this was an allegory for the World War, and both sides would try to do a genocide on the hobbits. It,
Wow.
so like that's what he said, which is like, yeah, like he said they would enslave and like and wipe out the Hobbit people because they would both sides would see them as useless. He said if I was writing an allegory for the First or Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's not just about winning, it's about winning in the correct way.
Right.
And so like that's why, and it's same with like why Aragorn has to be the guy to win the battle. And like
Right.
even like to kill the Witch King, it's gotta be Eowyn. And it's like you gotta have the right guy in the right place, or it's not the real way you're supposed to win.
Well, and like
Yeah.
the right blade as well, forged thousands of years ago. Like that was wild. That was wild to me as well, because of course it's Eowyn and Mary that like double team the Witch King at the end. And there's a
Yeah.
whole paragraph about how, oh yeah, and this blade that he found off of the Barrow Wights way back in book one was forged like when this place was a kingdom, specifically in enmity to like Angmar, where the Witch King is from. So yeah, this blade finally finds its destiny.
John Ronald, you fucking nerd. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah,
Aisha, what were you saying?
I was gonna say, I guess like Aragorn goes off to like get some dead people, but the way
Yes.
everybody looks at it, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go kill myself. And everyone's like, cool, I guess. Like, because he's like, I'm going to the paths of the dead. And everyone's like, that sucks. Don't do
Mhm.
that. And then Eowyn's like, I'm obsessed with you. Please don't leave. And he's like, no, I have to.
And is this the chapter with Eowyn's like banger quote? What are you afraid of?
I have like mixed opinions on Eowyn, but I do think that she says some really hard shit.
Here we go. Aragorn asks her, "What do you fear, lady?" "A cage," Eowyn said. "To stay behind bars until use and old age accept them, and all chance of doing great deeds is gone beyond recall or desire." Um, which is pretty, it goes pretty hard, but it's also like, and this is why she's going to be joining the army and pretending to be a man, like, a la Mulan.
Right.
Um, but it's also like why she's into Aragorn. She sees this like promise of greatness. Like he
Right.
is, and this is the one of the only times like I think like Tolkien will have a character like really think their destiny is one thing and it is another thing, and it's not them being evil. Like
Yeah.
she thinks her destiny is Aragorn and war and this, that, and the other, and like is good at it. And like actually she has something that's even better, but she doesn't realize it yet.
Right.
Which I
I
think
have
is
to,
cool.
yeah, Eowyn being like, hey, you like y'all brought me up to be a warrior, but
Right.
now you make me stay at home and take care of like the old people. Like, why did you do this?
Mhm.
Why can't I go seek glory like all of the men? Which I guess like I mean, she's got a really good point. I think I made this point in when we talked about the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like it really irritates me that like Santa is like women can't fight or whatever. or Aslan or whatever, Santa and Aslan, or
It's
like
like
women.
ugly when women fight, I think
Right.
is what they said.
Right. But it's like y'all, none of y'all should be fighting.
Right.
Like it's not good. Like war is not good. Like so I am like glad on the one hand that like Eowyn has to like does kind of, I mean, she does do war, like she defeats the evil general. But like so on the one hand I'm like, yes, more women fighter pilots, but then on the other I'm like, no fighter pilots.
Sure, right. That therein lies the contradiction. And I do like that they like and everyone there, and I like a lot of people there get it. Like they're like the main characters aren't particularly afraid, except for maybe Gimli. Like, he's got to be like, my bones are chill. But like everybody else, no one's really scared except from like the idea that they will fail, but they don't seem like scared of like their mortal peril.
Right.
Except like the normal guys and the troops are like scared of like the haunted mountain and stuff. But it's interesting. I do like when they like go into the gate, it said, and some said, Elvish whites, let them go where they belong, into the dark places, and never return. The times are evil enough. They're like, fuck these main characters. They're so annoying.
There's a lot of just walking through land that really sucks. Like there's the Paths of the Dead. There's like, actually, this surprised me because there's that prison break from Cirith Ungol in at the beginning of book 6 in the back half of the book, right when Frodo and Sam finally get out of the tower, and they're not technically even in Mordor yet. But the land is already blasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta know your geography,
It's
Lenore.
bad. It's bad vibes. Bad vibes make the planet rot, as we've discovered from this book.
Well, and like the contradiction between like the bad vibes and something new coming out of the West to like save. I mean, that's why I love this bit where Pippin meets Baragond, the guard dude, and he's like, yeah, what would you know, Master Peregrine? Well, said Pippin, if I may venture to say so, rather a burning question in my mind at present is, well, what about breakfast and all that? I mean, what are the meal times, if you understand me? And where's the dining room, if there is one?
Same.
And the inns? I looked, but never a one could I see as we rode up, though I had been borne up by the hope of a draught of ale as soon as we came to the homes of wise and courtly men. Baragon looked at him gravely. An old campaigner, I see, he said. They say that men who go warring afield look ever to the next hope of food and of drink, though I'm not a traveled man myself. And it's like,
That's
okay, so
awesome.
he runs into, somebody who's used to being a comfy jackass, and he's like, oh, here's a seasoned adventurer because this guy's hungry. And like people who are hungry because they've been on campaign.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I like
yeah.
them. I think those two are really cute. Like Pippin
Baragon got
making
cut
friends.
from the movie, yeah.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
But yeah, they are cute, I agree.
It's weird what they cut from the movie and what they didn't. There's some stuff that I remember being very cool, but then it's not really in the book. It's just in the movie, like the stuff with the ghosts is
Yeah,
like
they play that
super
up.
cool in the movie.
And like I don't, blame them for trying to do a screen adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
You do your thing. I have my like part of me that's a Tolkien super fan that's like, where's Tom Bombadil? I want to see him. But then I have
Yeah.
another part of me that's like, yeah, it was a 4-hour movie. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, and inside me there are more than two wolves. I don't know. Wargs,
Yeah.
maybe.
My
But
issue with the movies is kind of more like the stuff that the movies ended up doing to New Zealand. Like,
sure.
yeah.
The the actual like
The
lasting
actual
effects, you mean?
impact. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk if actually we should come back to that at the end. I'd like to do that. Just to, move forward here. And once again, our listeners know the story of Lord of the Rings. 99 out of 100 of you do. I say that like or however many listeners we have.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. The Return of the King is kind of hard to summarize just because it has like a few very discrete events, but a lot of it is kind of just like describing large troop movement.
Well,
So
yeah, it's building up to these big events, horns, 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 and dark, the sides echoed, great horns. Like it's just things like that happening. And hammers and
I guess there's Denethor like burning himself to death and trying to burn his son to death because he's gotten the depression has gotten him.
Yes.
And then Pippin saves.
I do like that, and I do like the fact that like they start talking about like the hands of a king being the hands of a healer in that same chapter, right? And what's the last that we see of Denethor? He lies back on the fucking like pyre thing, and the last thing we see of him is his hands holding the Palantir. And like,
Yeah.
okay, so these are the hands of these are what the hands of a king are not, right?
Yeah.
Just burning
Yeah.
and
That's the
looking
one
into
where they
death.
go to like, because then Mary and Eowyn kill the Witch King, and like get all like the bad vibes get them. Um, like Mary's vibes are so bad he can't use his arm. Um, and yeah, and then they go and Aragorn is like, get me leaves. I need leaves in which to heal them. The good vibes leaves.
It's Athelas, and I know that most specifically because I played Lord of the Rings online, and that was what they called the HP potions
Oh, I
in the
love
game.
that.
It's
Mhm.
Athelas.
It's like the
Yeah,
elf root from Dragon Age.
basically. Yeah, and you would just like collect it and do your little crafting.
Green herb from
Um,
Resident Evil.
and if you wanted
Yeah.
to craft more than 10 a day, you had to pay like 9.99 a month or something like that. Free to
Oh,
play,
fuck
one of those
off.
free to claim games. And boy, did I pay it.
It's because you're not a king, so you need to pay
That's true.
you got to pay rent to
It's
use
true.
the to
It's
use the
crazy
the lead.
how Aragorn had time to do all these extra missions with me in that game while the events of Lord of the Rings were happening. It
That's
was really
crazy.
impressive. And how
Yeah.
my character could travel like from Mordor to like Rivendell back and forth very quickly to see and be at all these events. And then like it would have the characters from the books be like, you again, insert your character name. My, have you come far?
Well, chapters two through
And I'm
five
like
certainly
I'm
feel
like
like a
14.
journey of that nature.
You're like, there's a fast travel system in this game, bro. Don't worry about it.
And I'm like 14, like this is the greatest thing that's ever been done. Like this is a masterpiece. But highly recommend friends of the show, Podside Picnic did an episode on Lord of the Rings Online. Highly recommend that to anyone interested in diving into that, and especially its fan community, because holy cow. The Ride of the Rohirrim, we have just like, I mean, both in book and movie, just like one of the sickest things ever when the Rohirrim just like roll up to save people from Gondor. Now this happens after they like briefly get helped by like a group of like indigenous forest people.
Yeah, that was like I was not expecting that. It was not as racist as it could have been, but it was kind of racist.
And Aragorn at the end of the book gives them self-determination and like gives them power over their land. So, land back Aragorn, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
That's cool, I guess.
good
Yeah.
for him. I mean, they had to like earn it in his estimation, which isn't good. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're just like an interesting thing. They were like, yeah, there's some guys in woods and you think they're going to be bad, but then they're like, we're going to help you, but you better come back and kill these fucking orcs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on this? Like, it's like a thing that's cut from like even discussions of it usually because it's like almost doesn't need to be there aside from like I think Tolkien was thinking a little bit about logistics and like, well, the orcs would set up their forces near the river Anduin, so how would they?
I mean, I like them mentioning the common people like at all because they
Sure,
don't really. And when they do, I don't know, like Aragorn is just kind of mean to that healer woman who
sure.
like I guess she kind of talks his ear off, but so does every other person. Like he's like, "Wow, you talk so much, woman." And I'm like, everybody in this cannot shut the fuck up." Like
Yeah,
you
I
just
mean,
don't want to hear what she has to say because she's not talking about anything that interests you.
yeah, I mean some of the only mention that we get of anybody below like night level is like when Denethor is like, "Yeah, we're all doomed." His specific quote is, "Mean folk shall rule the last remnant of the kings of men, lurking in the hills till all are hounded out." It's not just that the kingdom's like power is shattered, but that it's not going to have people worthy. The people aren't going to have anybody worthy of leading them.
Yeah. Yeah, there is nobody. They're like none of the main characters are like there's nobody who is like working class, quote unquote. Like even the
Hmm.
hobbits are like Frodo's is like a rich landlord. Like I guess Sam,
Sure.
maybe Sam.
Sam, yeah. And for Tolkien, like his explanation, of course, would be like, well, the people in the Shire, nobody's poor. And when Aragorn's king, nobody's poor because he does like a good job, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Because
Which
again, it's
okay,
it's not
like
really investigating it.
right.
Which again, it's on the one hand, we can say it's not that kind of book, but on the other hand, he has created an extremely detailed world that it's hard not to think about the implications of because
Right.
he gave us the maps and the languages and the geography and like, you know, you want to think about it. And
Right. I mean,
it's interesting.
I like to think that a world like a just world where no one is poor is possible.
Sure.
I don't think
Is it under a king?
Right, exactly. So like, I don't want to like, I don't want to pixel fuck like Lord of the Rings because
No
it's
doubt.
like it's a certain kind of book. And like a lot of stuff that then investigates this kind of thing, like A Song of Ice and Fire, I think is concerned with very different
Yeah.
things. It is concerned with like trade routes. It is concerned with the
Sure.
common people. Like it is concerned with like rape and pillage, which inevitably happens during war.
Right.
And you don't hear about any of that in The Lord of the Rings. Like basically not at all. Like what happens to the lands when there is a war.
And Tolkien does have, in some of his other writings. Have any of y'all read Lost Children of Hurin?
No.
Way back in high school.
Okay. So in Lost Children of Hurin, he writes later than this, right? And it's a book that takes place 1,000 billion jillion years before this. I don't know the timelines in Middle Earth. I used to know them when I was younger. And basically in that, people had talked about like the nature of war and stuff. And he was like, okay, I'll write a book about like what actually happens in war. And it'll be
And then
set
we
in
get the
Middle Earth.
Battle of Unnumbered Tears.
Yeah, and it
Right.
just everyone dies and a whole continent is devastated and it's death, death, death. Every character dies by the end of the book. It's his sort of take on a Shakespearean tragedy, but also like just horrible thing after horrible thing. And the orcs are taking prisoners and it doesn't get like descriptive because he's like still a good Catholic boy, but
Right.
like he's like, yeah, no, this is what actually. So it's like, I'm not under the impression Tolkien doesn't know what this stuff actually is. The guy breathed in mustard gas.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But it is just like an interesting, but it's also interesting that the guy who breathed in mustard gas also wants to write this book where it's like this. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And kind of shows a light on his character.
Right.
To talk about just a scene that I fucking love, the Lord of the Nazgul returns. He comes down, the Witch King, the man who stabbed Frodo, all this darkness, it says, in the midst of the glory of the king, that being Theoden, and his golden shield was dimmed, the new morning was blotted from the sky. Dark fell about him, horses reared and screamed, men cast from the saddle lay groveling on the ground. And this creature just like comes down and it talks about this creature with no quills or feathers, vast pinions, whereas webs of hide between horned fingers, and it stank, a creature older than of the older world, whose kind lingered in forgotten mountains, cold beneath the moon. And it says, upon it sat a shape black mantled, huge and threatening, a crown of steel he bore, but between the rim and robe naught was there to see save a deadly gleam of eyes. The Lord of the Nazgul, to the air he had returned, summoning his steed ere the darkness failed, bringing ruin, turning hope to despair, and victory to death. A great black mace he wielded. It's sick. Like it's so
pretty sick.
Cool. He knows how to paint this scene in a very cool way. And there's so many great artistic depictions of this scene, and the Witch King looks so different in so many different ways they're drawn, and I love it every time.
I mean, just the level of craft in these books, like that's one of the reasons when people will get very like, oh, the Lord of the Rings is stupid, it's boring, it's simple, it's for children. I'm like, okay, like it's not for everybody, definitely, and
No doubt.
and it is so earnest that it comes across as like hokey sometimes.
Yeah.
But just the level of craft in the prose in this book, anybody who's like it's not well written because like he describes a hill for 2 pages, like first of all, that's not true. Like he might describe it for a paragraph or 2.
Yeah.
But also just like all of the best parts of this book are when he's describing how stuff looks.
Yes.
Like the worst parts is where he does like really bad poems that he wrote. But like my
Those
dude
could
is
be
not
more-
a poet.
Those are more fun when it's the hobbits or someone who's not good at poetry doing it, because then it like fits, like Sam doing his little poem and then everyone's like bravo, and I'm like,
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
reading it can be like, this is a goofy poem, but like when it's Aragorn it's like, oh yeah, no, bro thought he was cooking.
Well, what's
Right.
funny is that like by the end, like when we're back in Bree, like somebody in the Prancing Pony is like, hey, let's have a song, and everybody's like, no, do you remember what happened the last time somebody sang? He fucking disappeared.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A little self-aware humor.
Yeah. But yeah, Eowyn defeating the Nazgul King is really hard. She like he's like, no man can stand against me. And she actually, I guess, like, it's like apocryphal that she says, I am no man, because she doesn't say that. She says something else.
But
But
no
like maybe
living
she
man am
says,
I.
yeah, she says, yeah, I guess that's basically the same thing. But
Mm.
like, yeah, she gets off a one-liner and then like kicks his ass, which is awesome because they're like, yeah, nobody can kill him. He's unkillable. And she gets him in one hit. Like she just literally like one hit KOs him.
It's interesting, and it's also like Tolkien doing Macbeth. Like, like
Mhm.
he likes to do the like classics, and this is absolutely Tolkien's Macbeth right here. Like the, no, what is it? The no man can kill me, and that was born of a woman, and this
Right.
is sort of his remix of that.
Right. It's very like fairy tale rules. Like in
Yes.
like with fairies and stuff, they have to obey very specific rules. And if you can trick them, like
Hmm.
you can win. Like if you can like so she did. She tricked him basically. Like she found the loophole and
Hmm.
because it's like, oh, men can't kill me. Okay, well, bet. Like I'm not a man. So yeah, it's
I
like
will
fairy tale
say,
logic.
I do think it's very funny that in a world having a prophecy that says no man can kill you, in a world where like half the population aren't humans, it's like that's actually less encouraging than in Macbeth.
You fucked it.
Like
Yeah.
elves, wizards, ints, a lot of
Yeah.
people can still drop you, man. But I guess he was encouraged by that, but no man.
Yeah.
And also it didn't say anything about hobbits because
That's
Mary
true.
absolutely has his stabs him in the leg. And I do like that he stabs him in the leg and it like paralyzes his arm. Like it is showing the
Hmm.
the sacrifice being put into that. And I can't help but, you know, think about Tolkien literally becoming partially disabled from his time in World War I after
Oh
being
yeah.
being a
Yeah.
rugby star as a teenager.
Which I
Yeah.
mean, that is war, like even the moments where you can have, something resembling heroism, where you can do something good, or as good as you can be in something as bad as warfare, right? That sticks with you, right? And it's Frodo's like Morgul blade wound
Yeah,
flaring up when they pass
every year.
Weathertop, and every year on that date, right? It's every springtime, he falls ill, like, and actually, like, there is a moment of hope right at the end, because like Sam's first kid happens to be born on the day that the ring is destroyed, right?
Yeah. I
Right.
think it's interesting too that if you go back through the letters of Tolkien, which I read there's a big compilation of letters. I forget what it's called. It's a long name, but I read pretty much all of it in preparation for this series. You can't go a month without him starting a letter with like, I felt ill this morning, I was unable to write,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and again, this is a guy who when he was 17, people were talking about like he could have been like a professional rugby player, which is hilarious if you look at pictures of him later in life. He's just a scrawny little guy, because but he literally, I mean, like, shouldn't have lived through the trenches of World War One. So he does have this he has a very serious like honor for healers, like,
Hmm.
which is why he says the hands of the king are the hands of the healer. The house of healing, where Faramir and Eowyn meet each other, is like the most sacred
Right.
place in the book, really, almost. He has that like that idea of like that beauty and healing, and being like, no, actually, Eowyn was not born to be a warrior; she was born to be a healer, and that's like way better. Um,
Right.
there's there's some sexism tied up in there as well,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
doubt. But
So
I don't know. What do you think about that?
a thing I find interesting about Eowyn and that I really appreciate about her, even though I do think that she very like she is the girl
Yeah,
in the
no doubt.
story.
Yeah, the
But
movie tries to make Arwen the second girl, but she's not in this book.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. She's not in it. They like replace Glorfindel with her in the movie, don't they? Like
they
Glorfindel doesn't
do.
exist.
They do. Whereas in this, he just like sticks her in the appendices, which I do
Yeah.
like the appendix about them, but he does in
Yeah.
There's
fact
there's
stick her there.
surprisingly little of the elves in general here. Of like, there's like Fellowship was like fully one quarter like elves telling you stuff, and now here like Elladan and Elrohir here like the sons of Elrond.
They don't even have lines.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a bit where Aragorn's like, yeah, these guys told me about the past of the dead. Let's go there, and then that's basically it.
Yeah.
My second podcast will be called Elves Telling You Stuff. But go ahead, Aisha.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
cooking it up on the side. But sorry, you were talking about Eowyn though.
So I actually like that Eowyn has like impure motives for some of the things that she does, or she has like complicated motives. Like I know that the reason that she's in love, quote unquote, with Aragorn is because he like represents what she wants to be, like a warrior, like free to like go after like honor the way that like her brother does and stuff like that. But I like that she like want like that she has complicated reasons for the things that she does, and it's either like, to prove herself in a certain way, to prove that she's as competent as men, to go after this guy she likes, and it's not all just like pure like goodness and honor, and that's what makes her want to fight. Like, because all of the men are like, I'm doing this for like honor and because I'm so great. And Eowyn's like, I kind of have complicated reasons for that. And part of that is maybe Tolkien being like, well, women are like, duplicitous and like they always have an ulterior motive and blah, blah, blah. But like, I think it makes her feel more human than a lot of the men in this
Sure.
book, especially. I think in The Return of the King, a lot of the characters just kind of start feeling like caricatures. And they don't really have that much conflict. Like Gimli and Legolas barely speak.
Yeah, no, they are essentially non-characters in this
Right.
book.
And like even Aragorn, I think, is kind of just like he becomes the king and is kind of doesn't have like he's not like Strider's funny. And Strider is like kind of tired and is like, God, these fucking hobbits, like a little bit. Like I like Strider a lot more than I like Aragorn as a character.
That makes sense.
Right. So Eowyn to me feels complex in a way that a lot of the characters in this book don't. Like I feel like Eowyn and Sam are the two that feel the most like people in this book.
And I'd say Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
If we're adding, but like and it's interesting. I think like Tolkien only has so much space in his head for complicated characters.
I agree.
And he's like, well, we added Denethor, and we added Eowyn. Guess somebody else is gonna have to just become noble,
Right.
It's what it is, but Theoden. This battle ends, grand victory though. R.I.P. Theoden. He dies. R.I.P. to a real one. And then Denethor tries to fucking burn himself alive in this dramatic
like the
scene.
kings of old.
Like the heathen kings of old. Very cool.
Yeah, because that's part of what made them like unworthy in the estimation of the historians of the day, is that they chose the date of their death when it might have been ordained otherwise.
Yeah, you can't kill yourself.
Well, yes and no, because he also says though that it's not good to try to extend your life past its date. And one thing he really harps on in the Silmarillion and in Lost Tales is the Númenórean kings, when Númenor back in the day, the old kingdom, became like corrupt, was the kings would allow themselves to get old. He said good kings would just give up the spirit, right? But they weren't allowed to kill themselves. They just laid down and let themselves die. So like that's good.
The special third thing, not killing yourself, not living for a long time.
And the only thing I can assume is it's either a reference to Jesus on the cross saying giving up the spirit because he just lets himself die so he doesn't get his bones broken, because that would violate the prophecy that Jesus wouldn't have a broken bone. The Bible is interesting. Or Stephen being stoned, but like really saying like, Lord, accept my spirit. And then he just collapses. It's that kind of thing. I think Tolkien likes the idea of like a holy and just enough person can pass in their time while they're still hale is the word he uses.
Yeah.
Hale. But burning yourself alive is not good.
Yeah, that's not good actually. Yeah. I guess, they wrap up like the battle and then they like, I guess we could move to Sam and Frodo.
Yeah,
that's like part
exactly.
2.
Well, the last thing I'd say really quick is in a desperate final act, they gather the armies, what they've got, and they're like going to the Black Gate. And you have this sort of dramatic moment that I really, that mirrors The Hobbit.
When they get like Sauron's like cunty like commander comes out.
Yeah, he's like, check this out. And he's got the little jacket. He's jingling.
Yeah, I like that guy.
And then you just have this moment where everybody's standing together. Baragon is there, and I wish Mary were here. Pippin is hearing himself saying, "Well, well, at any rate, I understand poor Denethor a little better. We might die together, Mary and I, and since die we must, why not? Well, as he is not here, I hope he'll find an easier end. But now I must do my best." So you're here with the Hobbit, and you have the gates opening, and you have this sort of dramatic moment, and then it says, yeah, people are fighting, like a storm. They broke upon the line of the men of Gondor. And then
Pippin kills a troll at one point.
yeah, right here. At Pippin's side, Baragon was stunned and overborne, and he fell. And the great troll chief that smote him down bent over him, reaching out a clutching claw. For these fell creatures would bite the throats of those that they threw down. Then Pippin stabbed upwards, and the written blade of Westerness pierced through the hide and went deep into the vitals of the troll, and his black blood came gushing out, and he toppled forward and came crashing down like a falling rock, burying those beneath him. Blackness and stench and crushing pain came upon Pippin, and his mind fell away into great darkness. And so for a second, he's like, it ends as I thought it would. And then they hear, the eagles are coming! The eagles are coming! For one moment more, Pippin's thought hovered. Bilbo, it said. But no, that came in his tale long ago. This is my tale, and it is ended now. Goodbye. And his thoughts fled far away, and his eyes saw no more. I
What's
love
all the
that.
commotion, said the Lord of the Eagles.
God, I wish that were me.
Goodbye. But it is, I kind of wish Tolkien hadn't said, check it out, just like The Hobbit. I wish he had just not done that. I wish he had just let it be just like The Hobbit, because if you had just read the book, you would get it.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
they
it is
should have
that.
just cut to there's a disturbance in the forest tonight.
Goated. The book from the Eagles' perspective, and it is mostly just them hunting and fishing, and they're like,
Yeah.
something's fucking happening over
Yeah,
there.
it's just Redwall, except sometimes they lift up hobbits.
And then that's the end of the book. He says goodbye.
Right. And then it's the Sam Frodo show, this one is mostly the Sam show because Frodo is either captured or basically comatose.
Yeah. So the Tower of Cirith Ungol, this chapter surprises me because Sam's putting on the ring, and yeah, it sucks wearing the ring, but they're not in Mordor, I guess, so Sauron can't see it. And also, Sam just kind of deals with the influence. He's tempted as anyone would be, with the prospect of a huge garden in his case.
I
But
love that that's the most evil thing the ring can cook up. His darkest desire, a huge garden.
well,
Yeah.
it's what it shows him is the
Yeah,
thing, right?
exactly.
Because that's the thing.
For
The
Sam,
ring,
yeah.
yeah, because the ring, the ring will bend you toward whatever it wants. It gives you the power to reshape reshape the land, but on its terms. It's just what it tempts you with. Yeah, here we go. He felt that if once he went beyond the crown of the pass and took one step veritably down into the land of Mordor, that step would be irrevocable. He could never come back. Without any clear purpose, he drew out the ring and put it on again. Immediately he felt the great burden of its weight and felt afresh, but now more strong and urgent than ever, the malice of the Eye of Mordor, searching, trying to pierce the shadows that it had made for its own defense, but which now hindered it in its unquiet and doubt. So that stuck out at me, Sauron can't see through his own bullshit?
Yeah. I think so. I think that
Yeah.
I legitimately think that he can't see if it's dark.
Mhm.
That maybe it is literally I'm yo, is it literally an eye that he's looking through? It's not a metaphor for he's putting out his influence. It's literally a big eye that he uses to look.
It's unclear, right? Because obviously you've got the iconic and awesome, but not book-based adaptation of the film with the huge flaming eye. Whereas in the book, that's not really what he's necessarily looking like. It's sick, and I love the addition of it. Good job, Peter Jackson. But it's unclear how it's working.
Right.
My reading of it is kind of like Sauron is tripping himself up with his own darkness in the same way that he's tripping himself up by making this ring and putting his power into it, and now he's killing himself. In the same way, he spent years, putting his darkness on the land, both mentally and I mean, there's a part here where Sam can't even pass through a thing because his brain is like affected by sorcery. And I
Yeah,
think
there's like these
Sauron's
two ugly
own,
statues.
yeah, I think it's Sauron's own
Right.
sorceries and his own evils that he's like can't see through.
I
Like,
mean, I guess it's like any panopticon where like you can see anything, but you can't see everything.
right.
Like you can only look in one direction at once. Like,
Mm,
because he's
Hence the
not
need
like
to, yeah.
he's not omniscient. Like
no.
he is kind of just a dude. He's very powerful, but like also I like that like it not really affecting Sam that much. I guess partly it's just he doesn't have it for that long, but also I think that like the more of a basic bitch you are, the less the the ring
Well,
like
yeah.
affects you.
Literally,
Mhm.
like on page in my edition 901 here, um, in that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm while he's thinking about the kick-ass gardens, right? But also deep down in him lived still unconquered his plain hobbit sense. He knew in the core of his heart that he was not large enough to bear such a burden, even if such visions were not a mere cheat to betray him. The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due, not a garden swollen to a realm, his own hands to use, not the hands of others to command.
Right, because
Yeah.
like even though Frodo does like ultimately like bear the burden and well, I mean he well until the very end, but like Frodo does I think have more of like he's a landowner, he grew up rich, he like is like the master. So he does I think
Mhm.
have the sort of aspirations that Sam doesn't kind of like, and I don't know, like I think that like your mileage may vary on like the pure simplicity of the working class kind of thing, which I find a
Sure.
little cringy. But like, I do like the fact that Sam is just like, I just care about my boyfriend and my garden. Like, I have respect for that.
Yeah, if
Mhm.
he, if Sam had a garden that he could like send armies forth to till, exactly. Yeah, it wouldn't be him gardening anymore. He wouldn't be Sam. It wouldn't be his labor in which he takes the most pride. His labor and indeed his servitude to Frodo ultimately.
Right.
Mm.
And it
And
is fun having him like rescue Frodo. Like that whole section's really good.
oh yeah, and the orcs think he's an elf warrior and stuff. Like that's a blast, you know?
I do like getting orc stuff. Like
Yes.
there's way more
Yeah.
like orc characterization in the books than there is in the
Mm.
movies. Like the movies, I feel like there aren't that many orcs.
Yeah,
Like,
they've got like the line, looks like meat's back on the menu, boys. But aside from that,
right.
which does
Yeah.
imply orcs know what menus are, so that leads into all kinds of questions. Orc restaurants, anyone? But aside from that, there's more like there's like Shagrat's gang, and there's like the guys who are like whispering to each other, and they're like, after all this is done, why don't me and you get some boys and we have a little gang out in the countryside in Two
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Towers? And it's like that's charming. I don't know if I want to know what your gang's gonna get up to, but that's kind
I
of
like their
nice.
funny little names, like Shaga. I don't
Gorbag.
know. They're all
Gorbag.
like, this isn't, I'm like, this is an evil name. It's got a lot of O's and like loud, like sort of like wide vowels. That makes it evil.
Yeah,
Like,
no, yeah, it was Tolkien. Like, what's the meanest guy's name I can come up with? I know, Gorbag.
Ugluk, yeah.
Oogluk. Oh, you know that
Yeah,
now.
it's all
This is a
gutturals and
real nasty
plosives. Yeah,
character.
exactly. Exactly.
but
And we also we
there's
we
part of me. Oh, go ahead.
well we get they got slurs too. Tark. That's like the orc term for like a dude from Gondor.
Mm.
Yeah, I like how they say Garn. I like Garn. Also, I'm wondering like the word, like I know that all of the Mordor stuff, like Cirith Ungol, that all sounds evil. I wonder if like those names all sound evil to me though because of the Lord of the
Right,
Rings.
right.
Like, so in my head, a name like Mordor or like Ungol or anything with those like broad like O's and U's, does that
Mm.
sound evil because I grew up hearing
Sure.
evil
Hmm.
stuff? Like,
And it's
there's
currently been imitated, other
Mhm.
places using those types of like vowels and
Right.
stuff.
And there is the certain like, well, this word sounds foreign kind of thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
those evil like Easterners, which like I don't think that Tolkien meant it like that, really.
There
I
are a lot
think
of
that
foreign words for like that sounds like elves and stuff too.
mhm,
He
yeah,
Oh
he
yeah.
yeah.
loves his words.
Right.
This is this is
But
this is
yeah.
neither here nor there, but like we were talking about, maybe I've told this story in the pod before. My buddy and I once were talking about like glamping, right? Came up in conversation, glamping, glam camping, right?
Hmm.
And he was like, "Look, Lenore, I know what glamping is, but it crosses my mind that if I didn't know what it was, to just hear that word, it would sound like sewing your ass shut."
Oh my God.
And now that sticks with me, the power of context, even
Nah.
just this one joke, you
Lenore,
think,
you have not told this on the pod. This is new to me.
well, that's what glamping is now. Yes. And like even,
I'm never
Damn
using
it.
that word again.
even one-off like joke from a Discord call at 1:30,
Mhm.
like if that can do that, yeah, absolutely, Aisha. Like the growing up with Tolkien and like his stature in our culture can, make these things indelible, like writ large.
And now there's 200 or 300 people that will always hear that when they hear glamping. Thanks, Lenore.
Yeah,
Oh,
I like all the orcs being like, oh, there's a big elf warrior, and Sam's like,
little
here's the
guy.
elf warrior. He's come to glamp you or whatever.
Yeah,
To
glamp your
sew your
ass.
ass shut.
Yes.
Like,
It's lovely. And now and then, Frodo gets his ring back. And he's of course suffering. We know Frodo is like, like a Catholic visage of like the most
yeah.
the most like all suffering. Like I just finished playing Blasphemous. And like Frodo is like a character from Blasphemous. Like he has been like the whole
The
sins.
penitent.
It
Yeah, like the sins
El
of
penitente.
yeah, he's a
it
little less
boggles
competent than the penitent one. All things
El
heaped upon
Incompetente.
him. And it's not there's like obviously like the jokes of like, oh fuck Frodo, Frodo's an asshole. And he's more of an asshole in the movies, I think. Especially with that like
Yes.
one really dick move he does with Sam, like Go Home Sam. I hate that addition.
Yeah.
But he is, I don't think, supposed to be like a dishonored figure. He is supposed to be like he is bearing the sufferings, the sins of the world. He is
Right.
like he is not Jesus. We'll see that. He is very much not Jesus because he does fail in his quest because Tolkien can't have a human be the one to or a mortal be the one to do it.
Jesus gets down on the cross and just gets down off the cross and just starts punching dudes.
But he is the closest.
Yeah.
He is the closest, I
And
think,
I
to
think I
Jesus.
mean, like, all of this is way more in the Two Towers than it is in the Return of the King, because Gollum's only in the Return of the King at the end. But I
Hmm.
do, and I know the movie plays this up way more, but I do like the stuff with like Frodo starting to sympathize more. Like Gollum, he understands Gollum
Sure.
in a way that like nobody else can. And like
Hmm.
I think that he like sort of can sort of empathize and relate to Gollum in a way that he can't relate to Sam. So
Yeah.
like the way that like Frodo and Gollum sort of start to vibe, and then he's like, okay, well, now I can count on this guy. I don't need you, Sam. It's like played up more in the movie for sure to have like the love triangle or whatever.
Yeah.
I have a friend who like uh I won't name their name, but they have this headcanon they call hot Gollum.
Oh my
Where they're
God.
Hell
like,
yeah.
if Gollum was not a weird little gremlin, people would be so into Frodo Gollum. It would be like the number one ship. But Gollum is like a creepy little, like, weird
Right.
guy. So, like, but they're like, imagine if Gollum was hot.
And
So
still
hot
had the
Gollum
voice that
was
he
born.
has.
Yeah.
Imagine, if you
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
hot
Yeah.
Gollum.
My friend has like a piece of fan art that I don't think is even supposed to be like gay fan art that
Hmm.
has like Frodo with his like or maybe Sam with his like sword to Gollum, and he has like he's pulling him up by his hair, and it's
Hmm.
so
Hot.
sexual.
There's a lot of that, especially from like the 50s and 60s art of Lord of the Rings. It's like this is so horny.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Classic
like
Catholic art.
the I don't know, the Gollum Sam Frodo like triangle feels it's I don't know, it's like very catty, and it's like
Sure.
this is just gay drama.
Hmm. And but yeah, they have that connection of like the sort of, be it like they would go to Ring Bearers Anonymous together, right? Like there's
Yeah,
like they have that same shared burden of this thing that is like an addiction to them, this thing that is their source of suffering and
right.
joy.
The On the subject of triangles, like when they're right at yes, yes. When they're right outside the door to the volcano. Like then
Yeah, because
suddenly
and to just to summarize, they
yeah,
cross through Mordor and it sucks a lot. Like it
Yeah.
at
just
some
is a
point there
lot
stops
of
being
misery.
anything but like prickly bushes, and then even those
Yeah.
go away.
Right, and
Somehow
Fortunately,
they find water.
and they
yeah,
literally get through just because of Sam's willpower. Like Sam
yes.
Yes.
just literally just muscles them through, which
Mm.
I think is like I think Sam is the most heroic person in the story
And
because
Undoubtedly.
Tolkien said that himself. Tolkien
yeah,
said Sam is the chief hero of my
he
story.
They've
does the most thankless,
Yes.
hardest thing to do.
But Lenore, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to summarize where we are when
Oh yeah,
this
legit.
this
Well,
triangle moment
actually, you've put
happens.
me in mind of something else that happens on the way there. Like they fall in with an orc patrol at one point.
Yeah, and a little more orc characterization. Yeah.
Yeah, every like group of orcs they come across falls to infighting and like slaughtering each other.
Yeah. It's not a very disciplined army. If Sauron had a little more centralization in his forces, he probably could have won this
Well,
war.
I actually think that's a really good like the portrayal of like a fascist army is
Hmm.
not going to be very well like very well supplied or very well like a lot of them are literally conscripts.
Mm,
Like they're here because they have to be. None of them.
yes.
I actually was surprised by the book's empathy for the orcs.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't expecting it because it's definitely not in the movie. Like the
Hmm.
orcs are just like faceless monsters basically,
Yeah.
and even though they look really cool, because they're not CGI in the original movies.
Hmm.
The guys in makeup, which I miss, but yeah, the books are very like the orcs are not an evil race. They
Hmm.
were corrupted.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like a lot of them are enslaved. And if they was up to them, they would not be doing this.
Right.
Which
They don't want to be here.
I think I didn't remember that from when I read the books. And I think
Mhm.
that when people, especially fascists, talk about the Lord of the Rings, they don't think like they don't ever talk about that. They're like the
Mhm.
orcs are evil. And it's like, no, they've been driven to evil
And
by
the orcs are what Sauron wants to make everybody, right?
right.
You know, it's not like these are the bad guys that work with me. These are the guys that he got already. And
Right.
you will be like this too if he wins. That's kind of the concept he has. And it's actually, that's a thing that's interesting. And it hurt his career significantly. Viggo Mortensen actually talked about during the press junket for Lord of the Rings. Not a lot of people know this now. 2002, 2003, he was going hard against the Iraq War.
He
He was
was.
wearing
Oh, wow.
and he was wearing like no blood for oil shirts and stuff like on the Lord of the Rings press tour.
That's
Um,
great.
and it cost him a lot of work, actually. He was like up for a lot of action roles after Aragorn that he didn't get. And he really like was going to be, a lot of people were saying he was going to be a new big action hero. And now some people, he still got work, you know, he didn't, you know, go anywhere, but like there was like, you know, superhero roles that were looking at him and like, you
Yeah.
know, different things like that. And he never got that.
Instead, he
Now
had to get his dick out for Eastern Promises or whatever.
yeah. um but he so it didn't, but that is interesting too. Like the orcs are victims. They're not whatever. And in Aragorn, Viggo Mortensen even has a quote. He says, "Ask yourselves, will the Middle Easterners see us as heroes, or will they see us as Saruman? Because I think they'll see us as Saruman."
Mm.
Good for him. Right on. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
but
100%.
it's great. He did continue to do work with what's the director?
David Cronenberg?
Yeah, Cronenberg. He did several Cronenberg
Oh,
movies.
right. He did that like surgery
Yeah, that's the
one
most
with
recent one,
Kristen
but
Stewart.
yeah, he's also in like History of Violence. He was like in 3 or 4 Cronenberg movies, like in the
Hidalgo,
decade
that
where,
like horse race movie.
yeah,
Good
he
for
kept like
him.
having trouble getting work, and Cronenberg kept being like, "You want to be in my like weird freaky shit?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll be in your weird
Oh,
freaky
right.
shit."
Yeah. Also, didn't he yeah, he was in that the horse movie
Hmm.
with the yeah, he's like a horse guy. I know
He is.
that.
He bought his horse from the set of the movie. But anyway, that went off track, but it's worth noting. But
Yeah, Jacob or Aisha makes sense of this to me. Then suddenly, as before, under the eaves of the Edmund Mule, Sam saw these two rivals with other vision. A crouching shape, scarcely more than the shadow of a living thing, a creature now wholly ruined and defeated, yet filled with a hideous lust and rage. And before it stood stern, untouchable now by pity, a figure robed in white, but at its breast it held a wheel of fire. Out of the fire there spoke a commanding voice. Begone and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom. The crouching shape backed away, terror in its blinking eyes, and yet at the same time, insatiable desire. Proto
Yeah.
Gollum right there. But yeah, it's what's the vision here exactly?
Oh, I got you on that. This is Frodo mildly using the ring's power a little bit. Like
Oh,
actually
okay.
using it. Because, you know, at first he puts it on, he's just invisible, whatever. But he's getting it, he's using it just a teensy tiny bit.
Like, I think it would have been kind of sick to see like evil necromancer Frodo,
That
like
would
if
be
he had
sick.
actually claimed the ring. I
Mhm.
know they were like, you could never stand up to the Dark Lord. He would defeat you anyway, or whatever. He would use you, he would corrupt you. But I would like to see like evil Frodo, hot Gollum,
Mhm.
all of these different.
And Elf Wizard Sam, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Elf
yeah,
Wizard.
yeah.
Well, the
Elf
funny thing
warrior.
is, Dark Lord Sam's like worst vision is like a big garden.
I know.
Yeah, the the
Like,
the, the Veil of Gorgoroth is like in fruit, and
it's like sounds fine, but
Yeah, so
Lenore,
Frodo
what?
becomes evil. He puts Sam in like a Princess Leia, like a slave Leia outfit.
Yes,
fuck yeah.
yes. I'm,
Sean
I'm
Astin, get on this.
yes. What are we doing? Yes, exactly right. My husband just went to Dragon Con and all the hobbits were there.
Aw.
Saw him on a panel. So maybe next Dragon Con if they're there, we can ask Sydney. If you're listening to this, why didn't you ask about doing the sort of slave Leia fantasy with Sean Astin and Elijah Wood? Come on now. Lenore, I'm sorry, we got way off track. What was it you were gonna say about triangles?
Oh, that was it. The Sam and Frodo and Gollum.
Oh, understood. Perfect. Well,
It's I don't know. It's when you and your boyfriend like hang like you meet the ex and you're like,
yeah, you know,
yeah,
and there's like a wheel of fire. It's like a whole thing.
right. Yeah, and
And
your
then your
boyfriend is like, if
boyfriend,
you ever touch me again, I'll smite you with my fire
Hmm.
ring.
and then the ex is like, "Don't kill us, don't hurt us with nasty, cruel steel."
This, I've read erotica that starts like that.
Yeah.
So the hobbits, after a lot more suffering, are at the foot of Mount Doom. This is maybe the most like iconic, one of the most iconic moments. You've got Sam, Frodo is literally shivering and going through like something between like withdrawals and like sickness and just everything he could possibly go through. Um, and it says, uh, Sam says, and I'm gonna do my Sam voice because this is how I think Sam talks. Now for it. Now for the last gasp, said Sam. I read the whole book that way to my little sister. As he struggled to his feet, he bent over Frodo, rousing him gently. Frodo groaned, but with a great effort of will, he staggered up and then he fell upon his knees again. He raised his eyes with difficulty to the dark slopes of Mount Doom towering above him, and then pitifully he began to crawl forward on his hands. Sam looked at him and wept in his heart, but no tears came to his dry and stinging eyes. I said I'd carry him if it broke my back, he muttered, and I will. Come, Mr. Frodo, he cried. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you, and it is well. So up you get. Come on, Mr. Frodo, dear. Sam will give you a ride. Just tell him where to go, and he'll go. And I love it so much. And yes, I have to read Sam's voice that way because this is how I read it when I read it as a kid, and that's how Sam will always sound to me.
Why does your Sam sound like a televangelist?
No, 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 no. He doesn't sound like a televangelist. He just sounds like people from where I'm from.
I don't know, just sort of like you kind of had like a sort of testifying sort of like
In that moment, yes, he is
yeah.
testifying, but mostly he's just like, Mr.
Mr.
Frodo.
Frodo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Southerner Sam because it said he was,
Yeah.
he's a simple country boy. And I was like, well, I know what that sounds like when I was like 12.
I guess I hear everybody in my dad's voice because my dad read
Yeah.
it to me. So he is like
Mhm.
Mr. Frodo kind of voice like this
That's
that he does for Sam. Like
mhm. And Tolkien, it was probably like, Cockney. Like it was
yeah.
probably, was
That's probably
probably
what it actually is.
yeah.
Yeah. Sean Astin's not British, is he?
I don't think
I don't
so.
think he is.
I think he's American.
Yeah. He does. I feel like he's the only one who like kind of only half attempts to do a British
Mhm.
accent in the movie. It kind of
Mhm.
like comes and goes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's from Santa Monica.
He's lovely in the role, but it's true he slips in and out of that accent.
Yeah.
Um, Regardless, they get to the end of all things, and the final confrontation with the fire. Frodo's standing over it, and Frodo just can't do it because this is a good Catholic boy writing this novel, and this is the epitome of sin, and no human or human stand-in, like a hobbit, can be the one to destroy sin. Like it fundamentally can't be done. He did as good as anyone could have done, but it cannot be done here. It has to be done by like Providence or the universe or whatever you know believe in. In Tolkien's case, you know, God. Um, and God comes in the form of fucking Gollum biting his finger off.
Which
And
is
being,
also very hard.
yeah, no, it's super
Pretty cool.
cool. It's a super cool way of it was like, who knows what Gollum's part was to play before they end? Well, his part was actually to die in a way that was more useful to the story.
Right. I mean, he literally like without him, it was over. It was like
Yeah.
Jover, man. Like
Yeah.
because Frodo would have become the new Dark Lord or whatever was going to
Mhm.
happen. Like, and yeah, so I really like Gollum. He's one of my favorite characters in the story.
I think he's the best character in Lord of the Rings
yeah.
to me.
He's really sad.
It's depressing as hell, yeah.
Yeah, because it's just not his fault.
When I
Like,
read the book, I sincerely thought, as a kid, I thought like Gollum was going to turn good at the end. Like I was completely convinced by the end of
yeah.
Two Towers. I'm like, oh yeah, no, he'll be
Nope,
good by
nope.
the end.
He turns into soup.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that now.
And then I guess like, yeah, then badness kind of like goes up in smoke. It's kind of
Boom.
very like, and then a shadow went away and the vibes became good slowly.
And it's
That
totally
happens a
over.
few
Wait a
times in
second.
this
How much
book.
book is left?
Yeah.
How much?
So
Like
the
3
part of the
inches?
book of the whole series that I think is the worst is everything from throwing the ring into the fire up till the scouring of the Shire. I think that is the worst part of the
100%.
book. It is so
It's the worst part
corny.
of the entire trilogy, I think.
Yeah, it's corny, it's long. It created like the meme of like the 6 different endings in the movie.
Mhm.
I also think that it has created this obsession with falling actions in our culture, which
Mm.
I think most stories are not served by falling action.
Mm.
I think that lots of stories should end when the story ends. We do
Yeah.
not need to know what happened to everybody after the story. I don't care. Especially like so many video games. It's like you beat and then you have to like run around and talk to everybody for
Mhm.
like 2 hours and I'm like, is that the end? So then when the credits do roll, I'm like, okay, well, I felt like I beat the game 2 hours ago and I feel kind of nothing now. So
Yeah.
I'm a big like end of the story at the final moment of the climax kind of
Sure.
person. But obviously there's like a time and a place for falling action. But I think that because of the Lord of the Rings and also kind of because of Harry Potter, I think that our culture is like you need to have kind of a long returning home
Mhm.
section.
Yeah, they visit everywhere they visited
Yeah.
in the previous 2 books in
And
reverse order.
I think part of this is Tolkien trying to do the like classic tragedy, or not tragedy, but classic narrative. You know, the Odyssey is something he's pulling from consciously, especially with the Scouring of the Shire. But God, like Aragorn and Gandalf looking for a seed to a tree is crazy.
Yeah.
Like that, like they're like, well, we got to regrow the tree. They're like, do you though?
It has a big like he needed an editor feel.
Uh,
Like he needed somebody to be like chop this. It doesn't need to be here. That's
mhm.
really the only part of the book. I know like lots of people are like the Lord of the Rings is too long. There's too much talking in it. Blah blah blah. The Council of Elrond is so boring. Skip it. And I'm like, no, the only part that I think needs to be chopped is the end.
Mhm. So I don't have a lot to say about it besides that. Are y'all down to hop right into the Scouring of the Shire?
I think
Yeah,
so.
let's do
I
it.
think
Yeah.
so.
The Scouring of the Shire is to me like one of the most important points in this whole thing. I think to Tolkien it might be the most important thing. And his original draft, before it was even Saruman who was Sharky, this was in the book. This was in the draft from the very beginning. Like back when they were facing Nazgul instead of a Balrog in Moria, it was in the book. It says so like ingrained in Tolkien's idea of what this book had to be. And he says, and he says, and I wanted to read this really quick. And to be clear, the Scouring of the Shire is basically when they come back to the Shire, it has been taken over by brigands, and just sort of people who were like, because of the war, were allowed to just, run roughshod of the Shire. And it turns out Saruman, now devoid of all magic except for being like really convincing, um, is kind of running this army of
And
ruffians. But
there's a lot of things that I think are meant to evoke the image of communism.
yes, and he
They mentioned
denies
like
it.
fair redistribution at one point.
Yes,
Yeah.
he denies it
Sharers,
endlessly.
gatherers. Yeah.
Here's a quote. He denies it endlessly, even though I agree. He says, quote, "It has indeed some basis in experience, though slender, for the economic situation was entirely different in the Shire and much further back than the Second World War. The country in which I lived in childhood was being shabbily destroyed before I was 10, in days when motor cars were rare objects. I had never seen one, and men were still building suburban railways. Recently, I saw in a paper a picture of the last decrepitude of the once thriving corn mill beside its pool that long ago seemed to me so important. I never liked the looks of the young miller, but his father, the old miller, had a black beard. He was not named Sandy Man."
Yeah, there is a lot of his, like, I think the scouring of the Shire is one of the things that creeps like JD Vance
Mhm.
like dig their hands into the most. Like this image of the Shire as this like perfect pastoral farmland where like everybody just sort of keeps to themselves and has their own like homestead that
Yeah,
they take care
homesteads as
of.
far as the eye can see. Who's working these homesteads? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Who like why doesn't Frodo have to work in the field? Don't worry about it. Like this sort of idea that like even when Sam and Pippin and Merry and Frodo will come back, they're all like, "How dare you talk to us like this? Do you know who this is?" And they like point at Frodo, and you kind of get the image that they don't mean he's the ring bearer who saved the world. They mean
Right.
like he's a rich guy who's from here,
Yeah.
which
Don't
to
you want to
me
be
is
invited to his birthday party?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like so I
Propriety.
mean, obviously, like, it sucks if, like, a gang takes over your hometown and, like, ruins it. But I feel like just this section is very confused.
It
There,
is.
it was much more of a stomp than I expected it to be. Because as soon as the hobbits are back, and they don't even have Gandalf with them, it's just the hobbits in their like raiment and their like armor and whatever, right? And they just immediately start running the place again. Like, who are you guys like enforcing these new rules? Who are these sheriffs? Fuck off. Like there's a bit where they're being quote unquote arrested and brought to the center of the town, and one of the onlookers is like, "Oh, who's arresting who?"
Yeah,
Mhm.
it has a lot of energy of like just dabbing on bullies, which is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
fun, especially if you're like a kid. Like this was my favorite part of the books when I was a child. Like because this feels really personal and it's fun to see them like these guys who like started out as just like dipshits kind of come back and be like strong and defeat the bullies and stuff like that. But now as like a 35-year-old woman, I'm kind of like, "Oh, what is going on here?"
It's to me, I still really enjoy the hobbits getting to be big fish in a small pond here because they
Mhm.
have been, you know, very small fish in a very big pond for a while,
Right.
right? Despite being important, despite being involved in all the major events, they've always felt out of their depth. And here they are able to roll up and just like be the coolest guys in the room, which is like fun. But again, it is wish fulfillment. In fact, wish fulfillment is a thing. Like, oh, there's like literature on like, people reviewing this so often. The word wish fulfillment is used. And it's not an exact comparison, but here is a letter Tolkien wrote around this time talking about man-made things. He didn't like the term man-made. He didn't like because artificiality, whatever. He
Mhm.
says, all things man-made are ultimately daunting and unsupportable. If a Ragnarok would burn all the slums and the gasworks and the shabby garages and the long arc-lit suburbs, it could for me burn all the works of art as well, and I'd go back to the trees, right? He's got this idea of like let's get rid scouring, right? Scouring
Right.
it. Now,
He's a hippie.
yeah, he is. He didn't actually live like one, but he is in his heart, you know?
Right. I
Um,
mean, there's a lot of, I think that, I mean, this is like a Lovecraft thing too, like fear and hatred of modernity and
mhm.
how
Yes.
like, you know, what a lot of the things that they mention in the Scouring the Shire is like a bunch of not public housing, but a lot of like something that is probably based on public housing. Like a bunch of ugly
Mhm.
new buildings have been put up. There's like a factory belching steam. And it's like
Foreigners have come
obviously
in, they're taking all the shit.
right. And it's very like obviously the way that the work, like that England industrialized, that sucked. Like the air was terrible. There was a bunch of people who were just living on the streets. It was a really terrible time. And I get that, like, you could be somebody like Tolkien and be like, hey, it would be better if we all just like lived in the Shire and helped each other and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but it sucked then too. Like there was a bunch of serfs and shit when England was like that. So like it was always good for somebody of like Tolkien's class.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
But
Like
the thing that he's longing for is not a thing that's ever existed.
exactly. Well, it's the like, oh, that's not capitalism, that's corporatism thing that like libertarians will like throw at you sometimes. Like it all began with Pimple, as we call him, Lotho Sackville Baggins, said Farmer Cotton, and it began as soon as you'd gone off, Mr. Frodo. He'd funny ideas, had Pimple. Seems he wanted to own everything himself and then order other folk about. It soon came out that he already did own a sight more than was good for him, and he was always grabbing more, though where he got the money was a mystery. Mills and malt houses and inns and farms and leaf plantations. He'd already bought Sandyman's mill before he came to Bag End, seemingly. So it's this, it's this guy who like he had a whole bunch of generational wealth from generations previously, and now he's got an infusion of money from Saruman to buy up more shit with. And it's like, okay, I mean, there would have been a Lotho eventually to be Saruman's proxy here.
Okay,
Yeah.
but and Tolkien would say no, there doesn't have to be. Like that is what Tolkien thinks, is that there doesn't we can be just like leave well enough alone.
Right.
And while that's not necessarily true, that is what he believes.
We can just do like having like peasant smallholders. We can do that properly, like
Yes.
Right.
I mean that unironically, yeah, that's the idea. I mean, that's why he says he's like a sort of anarchist, but not the kinds with whiskers and bombs, which is
Right.
I do like that quote.
He's the sort of everybody just be nice kind of
Right.
guy, which is like I mean, like I wish it was, and I think this is the thing that makes the Lord of the Rings feel like a children's story to me,
Yeah.
in that it has this sort of very, very like almost admirable naivete to it.
Mhm.
It feels, which is weird because like this guy's been in World War I.
Right.
Like this guy is not naive. This guy has seen the worst shit that it's
Yeah.
possible to see.
And he's writing a lot of this while his son is on the front lines, and he is like living through London being bombed and shit like
Right.
that. Right.
Right. So it's interesting that then that this is this sort of escapist, almost utopia. Like
Yeah.
if you get the right king, you can have a perfect society. If you just get the right people in
Yeah.
charge, you can perfect human nature, which
Right.
I think that is an idea that is both, I think, leftist and fascist,
Yeah.
kind of in a certain way.
It's like, it's obviously not apolitical, but it's trying to be.
Right.
And it's why Tolkien, I mean, I don't know how many times, like my eyes glazed over reading his letters because he kept being, no, it's not an allegory. No, it doesn't stand for anything. And he literally even said multiple times, I really regret choosing East and West. He was like, I promise when I wrote it, we weren't saying that as often as we are now. Like,
Right.
and I do believe that. He still wrote it. And I still think
Right.
there is connotations in his, he's a human being who was influenced by his conditions. And I think that he did kind of know, but like it is fast. He's trying to be apolitical as possible, but like you said, it's not.
Right.
But in his idea, like but he's like even trying to make this world where there is this enclosure and this like capitalist overreach, but like who's the enforcer? It's a guy who like when someone shows up to stop him, snaps his fingers and calls you a cock-a-whoop.
Right. Right.
Which is a thing I'm going to start calling people. That is right.
Weird because on a certain like level, like you do want to believe that there is a way to have a world where everyone gets along and everybody has what they need and there is no conflict and there is like that is the ultimate goal. Like that is the work, really. Like that's what we're all working for. But at the same time, it's like that also is the idea that this then can somehow be like if only the right men are in charge.
Right. And also that it's a return, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That like the return element is the fascist element to it.
Yes.
Like there was this perfect past that like, right. I'm not trying to say that like I'm not trying to live out and be like, well, leftists and fascists want the same things. Like that's not what I mean. What I mean is like there's this element of like, of perfection that I think is like seen by like different in different ways, and just like what we think of as perfection is very
Yeah.
different. Like
100%. It does have one of my favorite quotes from um, from Pippin, who says, "Down on your knees in the road and ask pardon, or I will set this troll's bane in you," which I do like seeing. I really wish we had from in the movie. I do like imagining Pippin, like, it's like, despite myself, despite like knowing what he's getting at here and not liking it, I'm having a lot of fun reading this chapter.
yeah.
And that's why I have like a lot of feelings about this. Here's a question I have for y'all. How do y'all feel about it being Saruman living in Bag End under the name Sharky? Um, and then and then they just like convince him to get like Wormtongue to just fucking knife him.
I think it's really cunt of him, TBH.
Yeah,
Like, I think it's really, I love Saruman. I
of
think he's
course.
I think that some of the stuff that he says is like Tolkien's writing at its most clever. Like,
Uh-huh.
I just think, especially when they like come across Saruman on the road and he's like, no, fuck you. I don't want
Mhm.
any of your shit. Shut up, Galadriel, you're a bitch. Like, all of that stuff is really funny. I love Saruman.
Hmm. Yeah, no, he's somebody who has been, I mean, we discussed earlier, like how part of the conceit of being on the side of, good and light in Lord of the Rings is giving your enemies mercy, right? Giving your enemies the opportunity to repent and come over to your side and do some good. And like Saruman is someone who you don't need to vanquish, right? He's somebody who is handed everything and systematically spurns everyone. And when he comes to his ultimate, end, in the shabby gray cloak, as opposed to like being the Saruman of many colors from the first book, right? When he comes to his ultimate end, it's after Treebeard has let him go. Because Treebeard
Mhm.
can't stand to see a living thing imprisoned, and that's the thing. Saruman doesn't need to be imprisoned because whatever mischief he's going to get up to, he's going to trip over his own like greasy jackass following him around with a knife eventually.
Mhm.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like that the last trick he has is he's like, "Oh, don't kill me. If you kill me, the Shire will wither and never be healed." And they all get scared. And Frodo goes, "That's not true. It's just not." Like, he has lost his sauce at this point
And
in
there,
a
well,
funny way.
and it is sauce that indeed other things have, right? The fell beast that the Witch King rides. It said that, yeah, like next to the grass on Theoden's grave out in the Pelennor fields grows long and green forever, and then over nearby where the fell beast fell and like stained the earth, like it was like blasted forever. And
Mhm.
like Saruman was a wizard, right? And he can't even have that lasting like impact on the land that some dumb beast had.
I mean, his
Yeah.
spirit is blown away by a western wind.
I think it's really interesting. Like, one of the most interesting things I think about the Lord of the Rings for me is like how many freaks and weirdos like use it as a way to like JD, like fucking just Dance Vance,
Yeah.
like using it as like Lord of the Rings is evidence that our like fascist worldview of like good versus evil is correct. And
Mhm.
it's like it's interesting that they get so much purchase with it. And I'm interested in like what y'all think, like, is there any like truth in like what people, how, not to say like it's not, obviously not a fascist text or anything like that, but like do you think that they are seeing anything that's real in the Lord of the Rings?
I think that return to tradition, absolutely. Tolkien
Mm,
wants that. I think Tolkien, if you pressed him, would probably say, yeah, tradition with some asterisks on it.
Mhm.
In fact, I know he would. Um, I think like the idea of like you just got to find the right people to be in charge and like a sort of lack of interest in general democracy and like everybody can just kind of do it. I think there is like a genuine nature to that. But I also think just the politics of it overall, there is a reason Tolkien insisted all the time that he was not political. He was not a good guy to go to for politics. He would
Right.
not do endorsements. He would do counter endorsements. He would talk shit about people. Like when he
Yeah.
said he told people, "I won't tell you to vote for, but don't vote for Winston Churchill." Pretty funny thing
Yeah.
to do.
I
But
know.
like,
I also know that he was very, very against any reading of like any anti-Semitism reading
yeah,
into it. Like he was
yes.
really against that.
He wouldn't
So
allow The Hobbit to be or Lord of the Rings to be published in Germany and like gave up quite a bit of money to do so
based.
because of like, everything over there. And this was prior to England and Germany being at war. But like
That's great.
And so like there was genuinely like, and he was mad like when he met Walt Disney. He said Walt Disney is like a foul anti-Semite. I don't like this guy. He said, please, I don't want to work with him. Like,
Right.
because they wanted to do an animated adaptation of The Hobbit. So like,
Famously, if you read the Nazis Next Door by Eric Lichtblau, Walt Disney played a major role in rehabilitating people like Werner von Braun, right?
yeah,
To like, oh yeah, this Nazi who used slave labor, he's going to be the face of rocketry in America. Everybody, like
yeah.
he gave him
Yeah.
like big publicity tour.
That said, who are the bad guys? Like it's the Easterlings, it's the Haradrim men of the desert. It's what like that's
Right.
there in it. And I'm not gonna pretend like it's not there.
Right.
And
There's so many
really,
things. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I really do genuinely think that like a lot of the like JD Vance like return weirdos who use Lord of the Rings as this text, I really think they rely on a lot of their foot soldiers to only have seen the movie.
also that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the movie, especially just like the visuals of the movie, being like these beautiful white people versus
Hmm.
these like hideous brown people. I
Yes.
think like the moment in actually one of the things that I think made me stop watching Game of Thrones was the thing with like white Daenerys in like the sea of
Oh
all of the
my
brown people
God.
like
That
bowing
Hmm.
was
to her is
that was
like
one of the oh my God.
one of the most hideous things I've ever seen in my life. And I actually recently tried to go back and watch the first season of Game of Thrones because I like House of the Dragon so much. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll just watch the good season. And I literally couldn't get through the first episode because it's so racist.
Yeah,
And
the
it's like,
Dothraki and shit. Oh yeah.
right, yeah. And it's not even that I was offended. It's just so cartoonish. They're like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, they eat dogs and they don't have a word for thank you. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
Holy shit.
Like, come
Mhm.
on. And a lot of the actors are just white people in brown face
Yeah.
too, because it's like
Mhm.
2012. Um,
Mhm.
so like, yeah, I feel like and that's really like none of that is in the books have a lot of like, and then we'll go to like the books have the stuff with Daenerys in the East and stuff like that. And there's a lot of like exoticism and stuff, but a lot of it is from her perspective.
She's
And
also a lot more villainous in the book,
right.
I would say,
Hmm.
because everyone's
Yeah.
fucking villainous except Jon Snow in the
Yeah,
books.
yeah, yeah. Right. So like yeah, I think that the visuals of the Lord of the Rings, just these beautiful blondes and like
Mhm.
the elves being, and there's so many things that I think that he kind of just tripped over his own dick and like fell
Mhm.
into, like because he was like obsessed with like Scandinavian myth.
Right.
So he made the elves these tall, beautiful blonde people.
Mhm.
And that has like is such a thing that like fascists can grab a hold of and be like,
Mhm.
like this is how these are perfect people, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
When he was just like, I think Finland's cool.
Yeah. But, and it's like ultimately it's like what do you do with it? It's like on the one hand, you know, and it's different for every work. I give Tolkien more criticism than I give some other people who get their work grabbed onto by reactionaries. Like the fact that reactionaries, there are some that actually like American Psycho and think that like Patrick Bateman, like I can't blame anyone involved in American Psycho for that. Like, what are you even
Hmm.
supposed to do?
Right.
Tolkien, I think gets a little blame, but I do know for a fact Tolkien would be disgusted by a lot of the shit that like JD Vance is into, a lot of the shit that like, because that's just whatever. The dude
Yeah.
was anti-war. The dude was anti, he called himself like anti-capitalist. He wasn't, but like he didn't like monopoly. He didn't like big business. He didn't like industry,
Right.
like and he had a very uncomplex, not politically developed worldview, but that was his worldview.
Right.
And so it's I agree that it is very, very much like the films, but like, it sucks and it's a thing we kind of have to push back against and don't know what to make of it. I was hoping Rings of Power would be good with a
Oh,
diverse cast in Lord of the Rings. It wasn't good, not for
yeah.
because it was diverse, but because it was a bad show.
That
Um,
that like when that happens, it makes me so like when something is really diverse and you have all like the creeps and freaks and weirdos being like, go woke, go broke, and then the thing sucks. And you're
yeah,
like, oh, come on. Like, and it's not because it's diverse, it's because everything sucks now.
yeah. If Return of the King had come out today, they absolutely would have gone crazy over Eowyn saying "I am no man." They would have called that woke.
Yeah.
They would have called it feminazi. They would have called it fucking everything.
Yeah. I mean, they did that with do you see how like weird they were about Hades too? When like Hades came out in like 2020
Uh,
and nobody cared about the fact that there were like black gods. Like
mhm.
nobody said a fucking word about
And
it.
you can
Hades
have like a
was
bisexual threesome, like
Yeah.
mhm, not just can should,
And
but
now they're like, oh, it's like Hermes is
woke.
Asian. I'm like, yeah, who cares? Like
Woke now.
they're gods.
Don't let them read the Silmarillion where Tolkien has his passage on where he says gender is fake. He
Let's
does have that.
go.
Nice, nice, nice.
Admittedly, he's talking about spirits, but it's still very like, and he says, but there are, I don't know the exact quote, but it's like, there are some who are clothed in like the flesh of woman who have the spirit of man, and that is the way of
Oh,
the god. That's the way of the gods.
did Tolkien say trans rights?
He was getting at it, our
What was he
Tolkien translator.
cooking?
Yeah, well, in the kitchen. But anyway, this book ends very melancholily, we'll say. Frodo is too hurt. He's gone through too much pain. He breathed in the mustard gas. He has to leave the world. He's got to sail across the sea to what is basically heaven. I won't get all lore on you on what it actually is. It doesn't matter in the context of this book. He's basically going to the next world.
He goes with Gandalf, right? Gandalf is there too.
It's time for Gandalf and all the elves to leave. There's like a smattering of elves who are going to hang behind, but they're eventually going to leave too.
But Legolas stays with Gimli, right? For a while?
For like 5 minutes. Like Legolas will like go in like 50 years or something like that.
Wow, that bitch is not loyal.
He brings Gimli.
Oh, okay, that's good.
No, it's Gimli right before he dies. He brings Gimli across the seas, the only dwarf who ever gets to go.
Does he die over there?
I don't know. It's the Undying Land, so probably not.
Well, the lands are undying.
Right. I guess Gimli got to go by marriage. Like he was like an elf by marriage.
Yeah. So that's like a throwaway in an appendix. But yeah, like when Gimli is very ancient, Legolas takes him across the sea, and Sam at one day gets to go across the sea as well, and he's like the last person to go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's no, I'm just noting there's like 130 pages of appendices that I did not read.
Yeah, I did not read them either. I have read them, but like a long time ago. I think when Sam and Frodo when Frodo leaves Sam at the Grey Havens, I think that is the first time I'd ever seen my dad cry when he read that.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe he also might have cried when Gandalf, quote unquote, died, even though he knew he wasn't dead. Like, but yeah, the first time I ever saw my dad cry when I was a kid was when he read me The Lord of the Rings.
I was legit tearing up at paid before last year. But said Sam, and tears started in his eyes, I thought you were going to enjoy the Shire too, for years and years after all you've done. So I thought too once, but I've been too deeply hurt, Sam. I tried to save the Shire, and it has been saved, but not for me. It must often be so, Sam, when things are in danger. Someone has to give them up, lose them, so that others may keep them. But you are my heir. All that I had and might have had, I leave to you. And also you have Rose and Eleanor, and Frodo lad will come, and Rosie lass, and Mary, and Goldilocks, and Pippin, and perhaps more that I cannot see. Your hands and your wits will be needed everywhere. You'll be the mayor, of course, as long as you want to be, and the most famous gardener in history, and you'll read things out of the Red Book and keep alive the memory of the age that is gone, so that people will remember the great danger and so love their beloved land all the more. And that'll keep you as busy and as happy as anyone can be as long as your part of the story goes on. Come now, ride with me. Fuck.
It's so romantic. It's like I know, like, all like gay jokes aside, I think that like whether or not Tolkien intended it this way, Sam and Frodo are extremely, like, everything about them is very, very romantic. Even just like
it's very sweet
in the classical sense.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just sweet and heartfelt and warm, and and everyone leaves and they're having their moment, and it says Sam, the evening deep into darkness, as he stood at the haven and he looked at the gray sea, saw only a shadow in the waters, and soon lost in the west. There he stood far into the night, hearing only the sigh and murmurs of the waves on the shores of Middle Earth, and the sound of them sank down into his heart. Beside him stood Merry and Pippin, and they were silent. And then the very end, I'll read the very end here. At last the three companions turned away, and never again looking back, they rode slowly homewards, and they spoke no words to one another until they came back to the Shire, but each had great comfort in his friends on the long grey road. At last they rode down over the downs and took the east road, and then Merry and Pippin rode on to Buckland, and already they were singing again as they went. But Sam turned to Bywater, and so came back up the hill as the day was ending once more. And he went on, and there was yellow light and fire within, and the evening meal was ready, and he was expected, and Rose drew him in, and set him in his chair and put little Eleanor upon his lap. He drew a deep breath. Well, I'm back, he said. And yeah, that as much as like the sort of last, fourth of this book has its stumbles, that is a fucking banger last few pages right there, is it not?
Yeah, it's interesting how like this sort of fascination that this book and The Hobbit has with like coming back and then like having to coming back to a world that's changed because like you never really go home because you've changed.
Mm,
Like this sort of like how sad it can be to be left behind
yeah.
seems to be like a I guess like also like for a guy that probably lost friends in the war
Hmm.
coming
Yeah.
home and being like
Yeah.
somebody who survived.
He was one of the only people who survived in like his whole town, like of the guys, because they used to put guys in units from the same town.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when a
yeah.
unit would get wiped out,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
They stopped doing that because they realized, wait a second, this is a bad way of affecting people.
Right.
But
So like lots of the Return of the King make me cry. Even the parts that like or make me tear up, even the parts that are kind of corny. Like
mhm,
cuz I don't know, he has such like there are lots of things that I think are like if you just had them described, you'd be like, "Oh, this is kind of corny. This is like whatever." But he has such a depth of emotion to everything that he writes.
yeah.
Like he like really just like I don't know, like there's a certain you can feel the Catholic in it, like the
Hmm.
ceremony of
Hmm.
it, like the sort of like the pomp and circumstance of all of the stuff that happens in the books because they're always doing like rituals and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
you can really feel just like the depth of emotion that he has for this thing that he's writing. And you can like feel like I don't know, like you can sort of feel his love for like the world and for these characters in his writing in a way that like for instance you can't like you don't I don't feel any love in the prose of C.S. Lewis. Like I
Sure.
just feel like I'm being lectured by like
Hmm.
an annoyed dad or something
Hmm.
like that. Like so I don't know, like um t- as problematic is the right word, but as like imperfect a text as I think The Lord of the Rings is, I think that it has just this quality to it that I don't think I've ever seen replicated, and I
Hmm.
don't know if I ever will.
He really loves this thing. Like
Yeah.
he really, really loves this thing. He loves every word in it.
Hmm.
And it's exactly how he wanted it to be for
Yeah.
better in moments and worse in moments.
And you can't really go back the same way you were, when you've been to Mordor and like thrown things into volcanoes. But like despite all that, there are some things that you thought lost that can still make their way back into your life in very unexpected ways.
Like
Maybe
your
even
pony.
I was just about to talk
Hmm.
about Bill the Pony. Yeah, yeah, and it's I mean, Gandalf said in the first book, yeah, the pony's smart, and you can kind of ride that off, right, as just him trying to comfort Sam, because no way a pony could make it all the way back from Moria to home. But sometimes after you've journeyed far for hundreds of pages, hundreds of miles, and forgotten about that, it's nice to come back and have that Bill kick Bill Ferny in the face, and he's never heard from again. I love that, by the way, that it literally says that, yeah, he got kicked in the face and he was never heard from again. And that's the last we see of that particular
Actually, I think
character.
he gets kicked in the ass.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Even
But
better.
I do like that he names the pony Bill.
Hmm.
Yes.
And I want to read the spin-off that's like the adventures of Bill the pony, like
Yes.
doing like homeward bound, like getting back to
To
That's
Barlam
the
and Butterbury, yeah.
No,
yeah.
that's what they're gonna do eventually, right? That like you have the Gollum game that comes out, right? You have like all
Oh,
the
so
God.
other like peripheral like Star Wars stuff that like delves into like the dude who like sold Obi-Wan death sticks or whatever. Like
they have a
eventually
Rohirrim anime coming out.
that's
Oh
true.
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
true.
yeah. I
And
have I have been toying with the idea of starting a game podcast, and I if I did, I would definitely do the Gollum game.
oh
Lord.
yes. That'd be a great one to start off.
Oh God.
But I mean
Oh,
that's but that's the
dire.
thing, right? It's you can have, something is so inconsequential that you have had to put away in the course of maturing and journeying and making all the sacrifice can come back around in the end,
Yeah.
and you can be forgiven a little bit of implausibility, um,
Yeah.
in such cases as those.
Yeah, I mean, like for all I say about how I don't like the all of the, and then they rejoiced and walked into a field for a while and
Hmm.
stuff. I mean, like you can't deny that he's earned it. Like
Yeah.
we've
Yes,
had
yes.
like just like 3 books of just like suffering. So like I
Hmm.
don't I don't blame him for like wanting to give his precious boys like a nice
Hmm.
time for a little while.
And it is
Um,
mostly boys.
yeah, he loves his boys.
He loves his boys. I saw a video earlier today that it was the Lord of the Rings, but it's just when women talk to each other. Um, and it was literally it did like the da, na, 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 and then it was one little girl from the movie going, "Where's Mama?" to Eowyn, and then it goes da da to Anne. It's literally the only line women ever trade. But
we passed the Bechdel
we
test.
did pass the Bechdel test. But this has been, a ton of fun, this series and Lord of the Rings in general. I love it with all my heart, despite it everything, and it's always going to be incredibly influential on me. It's always going to be, I mean, it's just at the core of why I like fantasy, like because I read it as a kid and I got to read it at like the perfect age. And so it's always going to have that spot in my heart. And then obviously in so many people's hearts. And as we talk in the future about more fantasy novels and stuff like that, I mean, it's just impossible to escape from this legacy. And even if you are trying to escape from the legacy, it shows that you're trying to do not Tolkien, right? You're Tolkien, you're
Right.
not Tolkien, you're subversive, you're class. Like it is here. It is a thing that all writers in the genre have to deal with.
Right.
And it's a fascinating way. Like I'm excited when we eventually talk about Fifth Season, which is a book I'm excited to talk
Oh
about one
yeah.
of these days.
Yeah.
Some of the ways that it's intentionally subversive are also referential to Tolkien in some really interesting ways. But
Yeah.
I'll go it on a whole tangent if we bring that up, and that's a whole nother episode. But do any of y'all have any final thoughts? And then we can sort of I know Aisha, I'm sure has a plug for us here at the end.
Oh God.
It's stood out to me that it's roughly 40 miles from like the edge of the Shire to Bag End. So, okay, the Shire is a little bigger than Atlanta.
Yeah. Well,
A
yeah.
lot
What
greener.
if the Shire was like Atlanta used to be the Shire?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Demarda is Hobbit holes. Oh my God, that'd be so sick. That'd be so sick. Okay, yeah, no, I know what I'm working on this afternoon. Get on
Just drawing a
Incarnate.
map of
Yeah,
Shire at
I
Atlanta. Yeah.
renew my Incarnate premium subscription. I gotta.
I mean, when I was a kid, my dad and I would go on walks in the woods, and my dad would say, "We're going to look for the Shire."
Oh, that's
When I was a
cool.
kid,
That's
Very
like,
so
cool.
cool.
yeah, we did a lot of that. I think that the Shire, like, I don't know, the Lord of the Rings. My dad is a Palestinian refugee,
Mm,
so like, I think that there's a certain like, I don't know, sort of like way that he resonates with that story and the way that like Tolkien, not he wasn't a refugee, but he also was like really impacted by war.
of course.
So like yeah, it's always been a story that's been extremely important to him. So
Hmm.
and me because
Of
of that.
course. Of course.
So thank you guys so much for having me. I was so excited to talk about another guy that I like.
Yeah.
Like
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for coming on. Do you have anything to plug that you want to talk about?
yeah, I work for a game company called Deck Nine Games, and our game Life is Strange Double Exposure, which is a sequel to the first Life is Strange, is coming out in 2 weeks. Actually, early access. The first 2 episodes come out tomorrow. Well, probably
So,
will have already come out when this comes
yes,
out.
I
Let's
don't know what
go.
day this is going to come out, but yeah, it's going to be closer. The early
Yeah, so
access will be out.
yeah, I think that the last time I came on, the game hadn't been announced, so I hadn't been able to talk about it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you said
that's
like before it, hey, there's something that like I will be able to tease next time I'm
yeah.
on or announce. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like my brain has kind of been like floating like in sort of like combination of like heaven and hell of like
Mm,
a thing that I worked on for like 2 years is being released to
Yeah.
public. But yeah, check that out if you feel like it.
Fantastic. I know there's some inspiration from Catcher in the Rye and some of the characterization you said.
Oh, well, there's Max Caulfield, the main character. She's not like we did not create the character Max Caulfield. The company Don't Nod that made the first game created. But I think that her name is a direct reference to the Catcher in the Rye.
Gotcha.
And she has a big poster of the cover of the cover with the merry-go-round horse. She has that poster on her wall in the first game.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
If y'all like Catcher in the Rye and y'all haven't listened to the first episode Aysha was on, y'all go back, scroll back in the feed.
Yeah.
Scroll back in the feed.
Yeah. Another guy who was fucked up by the war and wrote a very different kind of book.
Very different. We love guys fucked up by war, don't we, folks?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Let me see. I had something I was going to say to close it out, but I forget what it is. Linda,
guys fucked up by war. Tune in for our American Sniper episode, whenever that may be.
Oh my God.
It's on the list.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good one. Peace. And let us know what our next series should be, even though I know what it's going to be, but we'll see.
All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.